Hi, this is Shubham Tiwari, and I welcome you to the Salespanel podcast, where we highlight the journeys and playbooks of thought leaders from the B2B world. Tune in for all the things on data-driven marketing, product-led growth, and customer intelligence. Our guest today is passionate about SaaS product growth and both the pre-sign-up and post-sign-up marketing. She's also, very heavy on improving acquisition, activation, and retention strategies. She's the head of marketing at Userpilot. Emilia Korczynska, welcome to Salespanel.
Thank you for inviting me, Shubham. It's a pleasure on my side.
Please talk to us more about Userpilot and the role you play in it.
Sure. So Userpilot is basically a product growth platform for product managers, product marketers that allows them to essentially improve their user experience through, collecting user behavior analytics and then acting upon them by building, say, in-app onboarding flows or other in-app experiences that would enhance their user experience. And also it's used for building microservices inside the app. So it really gives them the free hand to build whatever they want based on the data that we are collecting for them, without coding, without having to rely on developers.
Right. You also design, develop, and implement marketing strategies that ensure higher visibility. Can you give us an overview of your process? Also, how do you scale visibility?
Sure, yeah. So, I started working with Userpilot when it was a really small startup at the beginning of 2020. And then towards the end, I basically took on the head of marketing role and started building our first marketing team. And so at that point, at the very early stage, I was doing everything myself and testing a lot of different things, different channels, kind of, throwing spaghetti to the wall and seeing what sticks. And the thing that stuck for us was the organic channel. So basically content, SEO content, right, that was driving traffic from search engines. So we decided to zoom in on that, because I think the biggest mistake that small companies do make initially is that they spread themselves too thinly and try to, kill too many birds with one stone, which is not possible. So we kind of got a really good consultant who used to be a VP of marketing at a company. It's a similar B2B SaaS. He scaled it from 2.5 to 11.5 million in 2 years. And he basically told us to focus, which was a really good decision. And so we decided to focus on what was already working. As I mentioned, organic content. We scaled our content operations from 1 post per week to 10 posts per week, right? So that's 40 posts per month. Currently, we're producing around 53 per month, and we're scaling it further. We want to get to like 110 by the end of the year. Yeah. So the first year as head of marketing, I was invested heavily in basically building the content operations. So in a sense, I was kind of head of content before we actually internally were able to promote one of our writers to content editor and then ultimately to head of content. So I could also move on to building our second channel. Apart from that, we also hired a bunch of people on the way. So we hired a growth manager, which was very important because she's actually responsible for overseeing the technical SEO parts and paid channels. So that works in conjunction with the organic part. That's still inbound, right? So essentially, all that we have been doing on the marketing front in 2021 was inbound. And only in 2022, I was actually able, once we kind of hired the head of content internally, I was able to move on to our second channel, which is outbound.
Right. And you have also been, involved in community building on Facebook and LinkedIn. And we at Salespanel, we are also doing the same. We are into community marketing nowadays. So what is your playbook on community building?
I don't have one, so it may surprise you, but it's not really a strategy for us.
Okay.
We basically set up this group. The first marketing manager at Userpilot set up this group before I even joined, and we kind of let it grow organically. It reached, as far as I remember, almost 4,000, around 4,000 members. So that's, great, but it's a completely different channel and we're not actively investing in growing it. So we don't have any playbook, we don't have any plan. We just kind of reshare some interesting content in there and let people share, whatever they want, as long as it's valuable for the community.
Yeah.
I feel like this is a channel that may come later once we have the resources to do that. I wouldn't say it's the channel with the highest ROI from my perspective.
Right.
So it's something secondary to content and secondary to outbound.
Right. So speaking of early stage B2B, SaaS setups where people are usually working cross-functionally, how do you assess the functional capabilities and potential of your team members? And if I again, pick that community thread again, because we are interested in that, how do you, assess like what should go with community marketing if the ROI is not that good? In your view?
Well, as I said, we don't do community marketing, so I don't assess candidates based on skills in community building, because we just don't need it right now. And when it comes to the cross-functional, as you said, capabilities, I'm a fan of specialization. So I think, as I mentioned earlier, the biggest mistake startups make is to spread themselves too thinly and to try to be everywhere instead of assessing the potential return on investment from different channels, and on focusing on the channel that brings the highest ROI, basically. And also, if the startups are budget sensitive, it also should be, the lowest cost possible. So that's my perspective on things. So I'm looking for people that specialize in the channels that we need. And even if we have other channels, if we're not actively growing them, like with the community or with social media in general, it's fine for people to have like pretty basic skills in these, right? So we're just about managing with the other channels, and I'm not expecting, a technical SEO manager to be amazing at community building, for instance.
Right, of course. So moving on to content now, you have sizable experience in managing a company's content operations. How do you stand out with your content? It's a very typical question, as well as its implementation. And how do you, graduate from a content marketer to a broader role of, as you are heading right now, head of marketing?
Yeah, sure. So how we stand out with content, I think we produce a lot of content that is also high quality. We developed a very, very detailed process for this. It's super well documented. So I would say we have a really good grip on the content operations part, and that allowed us to shave the costs off enormously through the system that we've built. So we have full-time editors that are kind of experts in certain content clusters that we are producing. So certain pain points that our product is solving for our prospects, our customers. And they produce super, super detailed briefs for the writers. So the writers don't need to have experience. They don't even need to have perfect research skills, because all the research is done for them in-house. And yeah, that way, by scaling, the number of editors, we're able to pretty much scale the content output infinitely without losing quality, right? We also have a pretty refined way of doing keyword research. So based on these clusters, we look for niche keywords that our target audience may be interested in. So we produce content, and a lot of content, as I mentioned, on really sophisticated, long-tailed keywords. We are departing from looking at search volume as one of the criteria that, used to guide us, and kind of moving more and more towards low search volume or zero search volume, keywords strategy, which means we can produce a lot more bottom of the funnel content, long-tailed keywords. So I would say that's how we stand out. But probably if I were to pick one way is, by how well documented our content operations processes and how scalable it has become.
Right, wonderful. Speaking of new acquisition channels, how do you identify which channels to pursue both in, let's say, immediate as well as the long terms? And which channels are you pursuing in this current condition, this recession that we are facing in tech?
Sure. So the decision to pursue a marketing channel is a business decision, I would say, not a marketing decision. So it depends on the business objectives that we have for a particular, say, year, because we don't really think of, attacking a new marketing channel in terms of quarters. This is like usually a 2-year project. So it has to be a really well thought through decision. The first year is for building, the processes, hiring people, ramping them up, testing the processes, refining them until, the whole process becomes, we know it works and it becomes scalable. So that was the case with content. It took us a whole year to really, build the process, create all the SOPs, hire the team, ramp them up, choose the right tools as well. All of this takes a lot of time. Right. So you don't see any results from the new channel, very little actually, from the first year, right? So that's something you need to brace yourself for. And so the decision depends on, as I said, what we want to achieve as a business. So say when we decided to work on content, our objective was to increase the lead velocity, right? So we just wanted to get substantially more leads so we could, grow the revenue through volume, right? And now that we decided to attack the outbound channel, right? So do some, cold outreach, test out ABM, right, as a new channel on top of content. The decision was motivated by us wanting to increase our ACV, because content is great for, as I mentioned, improving the lead velocity, but you have very little control over what leads are actually coming your way, right? In terms of company size, in terms of technographic criteria. So you may end up with companies that are a bit too small, right? So the qualification rate will be lower. On the other hand, the sales cycles will also be lower, right? Because these people are already problem aware at least, and oftentimes when you target bottom of the funnel keywords, they are also solution aware and really, ready to buy. And so there are upsides of, using the inbound channel, or basically inbound strategy and the content or paid ads channels for attracting leads. But there are also the downsides, and we are now addressing the downsides by attacking the outbound channel.
Right. You mentioned, tools in your answer. So my next question is on, what has been your experience with acquiring and working with marketing tools? And you may know that Google Analytics, Universal Analytics is going away, and more emphasis on first-party data is coming. So what do you see, marketing managers relying more upon in the near future?
That's a hard question. I think we still have a year to move. So we haven't really been focusing on that, but we rely pretty much only on first-party data. So it's not going to be a huge problem for us. It might be a big problem, say, in e-commerce, but in B2B SaaS, I think the whole marketing is based on building a long-term relationship and attracting qualified prospects through proprietary, content, that, like basically explains how our tool corresponds to their needs. Rather than acquiring, say, third-party data and attacking people through that. So I don't think this will be a huge problem for us.
Right. And how are you leveraging this rising awareness about PLG in your marketing product-led growth? I believe this trend is so close to what your solution is all about.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So, building enough experiences and not just, like a typical product tour or a new user onboarding flow, but in general, creating these enough experiences to help people help themselves, to push them to upgrade without talking to sales. This is the essence of PLG. And we're implementing that in our product while also educating the market about, how to do it the right way, of course, with Userpilot. So yeah, we are definitely riding the wave of PLG. I'm looking forward to, seeing more enterprise, or upper market SaaS companies embracing this trend, because we still hear a lot of these pushbacks or sales objections from larger companies that say, no, we sell to enterprises, right? We have long sales cycles, PLG is not for us. I don't believe in that. And there is an increasing, volume of data that points to the contrary. And I went to SaaStr Europa in June, and one of the executives at Meta was actually talking about that. And he mentioned a statistic that according to Gartner's study from 2021, 65% of enterprise executives would rather, swipe their credit card for the amount of up to $500,000 rather than, talk to sales to upgrade. So this is huge because it just shows that people prefer to discover, the tools on their own, their own time. Exactly. And this trend is only amplified by remote work. So after the pandemic, most companies realize that remote work is really the way to go and the way to grow, because then they can hire talent from all over the world, right? And the benefits of hiring the best talent without the geographic constraints far outweigh the benefits of having people in the office. And I think there aren't really any studies that confirm the kind of hypothesis that, people are more productive when they are in the office. No, I think some old school executives may feel better about seeing their people in the office, and they may feel like in face-to-face meetings are more productive because of the kind of psychological effect of networking with people face-to-face. But actually, most studies point to the contrary, that people generally produce more when working remotely. So how is that related to product-led growth? Well, obviously, remote work creates these challenges that we didn't have before. So people working asynchronously in different time zones. I have that, we don't call it an issue, but it's just a matter of fact that I have people on my team in marketing that work from Canada, and the work from Armenia, and the work from Pakistan, and US, and UK, you name it. So we have 10 full-time team members in marketing, and the time difference between them is 14 hours. So obviously we can't afford to have blockers in terms of someone is not able to do something and is blocking the whole team for 2 days, right? While we're waiting for an account executive, say, in the US to get back to someone who's in Armenia. That's insane, right? So product-led growth should, resolve this issue, because these in-app experiences should actually allow the end users of tools to help themselves to resolve their UX problems by themselves without talking to anyone in real time. And that's why I believe companies that embrace it and really, think about all these little hurdles that their users encounter in their products and how to basically inform them how to prepare these in-app experiences that would explain or help them resolve these problems will win.
Right. So last couple of questions, Emilia.
Sure.
As a multifaceted head of marketing, what books, communities, or resources would you suggest to our audience?
Yeah, so wow, there are so many, so it's a bit hard to choose. I would suggest some books that are general enough for everyone to enjoy.
Sure.
So I think like the books that had the biggest impact on my mindset as a marketer, rather than, like specific tactics, because these tend to change and go out of date. So, you read a book that was written 2 years ago and it's not really relevant anymore because the word in marketing is changing so fast.
Yeah.
So I would focus on recommending mindset books. So Build to Sell and E-Myth are the two books that really stood out for me because they emphasize the importance of building scalable processes, right? And documenting everything, creating checklists for people to follow in order to execute any process effectively and make it scalable.
Right.
So I've been really following that. And even though these weren't per se marketing books, they really influenced my marketing. But while we were here, as you said, kind of focusing on content, a content expert rather than anything else. So I recently published my own book. It's called Content Operations. And it's basically, documenting the process that we went through in 2021 while building the content operation at Userpilot. So all the steps, all the roles, all the tools, all the workflows are there. So if anyone is going through the same process, I would probably recommend this as a shameless plug, but I think it will really help people cut down the time that is required to set it up. And again, it's pretty universal, right? So rather than talking about hacks, it talks about certain universal principles of building content teams and building a scalable workflow, right?
Yeah, we'll certainly put the link of your book in the description of this video.
Thank you.
So lastly, Emilia, would you like to nominate anyone for our show?
Sorry?
Would you like to nominate?
Yeah, sure. I know a bunch of people who, are really, really great marketers. So I would totally recommend. One is Kaz Shatowowicz. She's the head of content at V7. One is Stefan Repin, who's a fractional CMO at Lensa, and then advising a few more companies. And then there's Azar Shad, which I had the pleasure to work with. He's heavily focused on growth and currently working on an edtech startup. So yeah, these are the names that come to my head first.
Great. Emilia, thank you so much for your time and opening up your playbooks on our show.
Thank you so much, Shubham. It was my pleasure. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you once again. And thanks to our audience for sticking with us. I'll see you in the next episode of the Salespanel podcast. Thank you.